guys, Danny here, looking a bit of a mess, but that's okay, because I am momming and working and yogaing today. We're gonna start out by saying this may be done in pieces, because I am indeed momming today. And this is the only time I was gonna be able to do this, and I really wanted to do it. So it may be in pieces, forgive me. I am doing the hashtag Decks for Decades from Jessica Starr, TheStoryWitch, because I thought it was amazing. I've been watching everybody's responses and have been so inspired. It's such a great hashtag for the fact that we get to share a bit of our lives with each other that maybe we wouldn't have before. So I thought it was a wonderful thing to do. So let's get started. The deck that I chose from birth to 10 is the Wonderland Tarot. This is one by Chris Abbey and Morgana Abbey. I gave him the 10. I chose this deck, yes, because it was a story that I loved and very much related to as a kid, but there's so much more about this deck that brings back that nostalgia for me. If you ask my parents, they'll tell you that from birth, I was just ready to take off on my own. So I feel like I have a connection with Alice that way, like, oh, let's just chill down the rabbit hole. Nobody will miss me. I'm fine. I can do this by myself. So I feel like with that, I have a lot in common with Alice. I was an only child this whole period of my life, and I spent most of my time searching for magic and searching for secret places and searching for mystery, maybe. I also spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My parents worked both full-time jobs like most parents do, but I spent a lot of time with my mother's parents. So I spent my summers with them, my days with them, my weekends with them. And another thing about this deck that reminds me of my childhood is the actual playing card correspondence and figures. My grandmother is one of 13, 14 children, most of which are girls. And every week, sometimes twice a week, they played cards together, the ones that lived close enough. And I grew up playing cards with my grandma and all of her sisters, and being taken to all different places and being able to explore once I got there. And it was sort of magical to me because no matter where I went, I felt like I could connect immediately with whatever place and like knew the little spots to go check out. And I give it to my grandmother. She took me wherever she could and exposed me to a lot of that and kind of allowed me to do, which my parents didn't. And so I hold this one very dear, and it does kind of spark. I was born and raised and now live again in southern Louisiana, a little Cajun girl. And some of the images in this, while not related to Louisiana at all, remind me of Louisiana because of the oysters. And then of course there's the hanged man. Let me see if I can find it, which is, see, here's our oysters, if you've missed those. They have the lobster in here, which of course reminds me of the crawfish. So it kind of is all-encompassing for me. Where are you? Probably way to the end, I'm sure. But even as a kid, like I said, I always looked for that mystery and that magic wherever I went. And I always seemed to be searching for something. Y'all, literally at the end, we have the lobster. the Hanged Man, which I call the Crawfish. That was a lot of, my grandpa used to say that's a lot of shit for a dime, just to show you that one card. Anyway, I spent most of my childhood trying to find the magic in things and trying to hold on to it and telling stories whenever I could. So I always say that I spent my childhood in castles and sacred forests and deep caves looking for magic, because that's how it felt to me. So transitioning into 10 to 20, like most people, my teenage years were sort of angsty and dark and confusing and weird and all mixed in with kind of happiness and figuring out who you were and being with your friends and doing stupid shit and things like that. I was, for the most part, a good kid. But I had a lot of stuff going on inside. Like, I feel like from jump, really, I've always been one person on the outside, but there's always so much going on inside. It's like I'm constantly running, right? So I chose the Cosmos Tarot and Oracle set for my teenage years because there's light and there's dark and there's strange and there's just a jumble of everything, and that's how I felt my life was in my teens, because again, so much going on, so many changes, so much struggle sometimes, because again, I was a highly independent kid. I didn't want anybody's help. I could do it myself, and I just wanted to be alone. I wanted to be on my own. So that, as you could probably imagine, was a really big struggle with my parents during my teenage years. So I feel like this kind of encompasses just the weird craziness and sometimes explosive anger that came with being a teenager. Like I said, I always wanted to be independent. I tried to get myself emancipated more than once because I was just over it. My parents didn't let me do a whole lot of stuff with my friends or in general, and I was such a good kid. I really was. I mean, I did the same crazy stuff that most kids do. I lied and I did stupid shit, made awful decisions, and went hide with my friends and smoke pot wherever I could. But at the same time, like, I really was a good kid. I got good grades. I tried to be as good as I could, thinking that maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to do something or go somewhere. So I really was a good kid, and I just didn't understand why I was being kept on such a tight rein, and maybe it was because I was just so independent that they were nervous and scared, and I guess as a parent now I could kind of get that. Another thing that this deck reminds me of my childhood, my teenage years, I really found music at this age, and I would lay on the floor with my headphones on and just meditate and allow it to take me wherever it wanted to go. It was super grunge. But I did love all kinds of music, and I felt like it just took me to these, I don't know, either other, dimensions, other places, into my imagination, that nothing else could. And creating the soundtrack of my teenage years will still bring me to a specific time and place, and I can smell it and I can see it and I can feel like I'm almost there again. So it really had a big impact on my memory at this time. I really created some very deep-seated feelings, I guess, when it came to the music. But at the same time, I always felt, like I said, my parents didn't let me go many places, so I always felt like an outsider, even amongst my friends. I was never bullied. I was never, I don't know, persecuted in any kind of way. Even though I was a plus size girl throughout my high school. But people seem to like me, and I don't mean to say that to be like, people like me and I'm in good seats or anything. Like, that's not the point. The point is to say, like, I was never bullied, but at the same time, I always felt like I was on the outside. Like, people liked me, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I fit anywhere, if that makes any kind of sense. So being just kind of like, oh, hey, and then forgot about is, I don't want to say it's just as damaging because I have nothing to compare it to, but I feel like it was a bit damaging. And I felt like a storm. This high priestess is the perfect accompaniment to what it felt like. Sometimes, because I felt like such a loner, even though I didn't want to be. I felt like even my good friends left me all the time because I couldn't participate. So I just felt like I was floating in a sea by myself, and it was confusing. And my sexual orientation has always been very fluid. So it was very back and forth, especially in my teenage years. I was exploring. I've never had an issue with anything of that nature, but that also felt a bit like I was separated from everybody else too, because there were some people that I refused to tell that to, and I wouldn't act like myself kind of idea. So again, teenage years were crazy and weird. The supernatural, that magic, stayed with me, which made another which made me also a super huge nerd. And I actually got my first tarot deck when I was about 12 or 13. I thought it was when I was 14. I mean, I thought it was when I was 16. I had said before, but it was before my brother was born, and I was 14 when my brother was born, so it had to have been when I was 12 or 13. I started diving into the supernatural. Some unexplainable things began to happen to me. I'm not gonna go into that too much, but like, that's where it started. I started really noticing it, probably about from 8, 10. I can't quite remember the exact time, but I know it was around that time that like sort of supernatural things started to catch my attention. And I started finding out and uncovering things in my teenage years. I got super into the supernatural. I started diving into tarot, although a lot of people, I was raised super, super Catholic, and a lot of people had an issue with that. But I started uncovering things about my dad's family. We do have a native background, which holds a lot of spirituality in it. I know you can tell. You can't tell from me, but my dad and a few of his siblings, you can really tell that native descent. But we've had that, and my dad's dad, was a traiteur. So that is a witch. They won't say that. No, that is a healer, Cajun healer. They basically pray over you. So that was a big part of my family. There was a lot of things going on in that side of the family that was kind of steeped in the supernatural, magical realm, that I slowly started to find out. So it really sparked that in me, but it wasn't something that anybody really wanted to talk about, which kind of made me sad. So again, I felt like it was a curse, and it was not something to talk about. So that kind of added that other layer to it, you know? So I found my escape in my books and my music, from Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings to Stephen King, from, you know, super grunge Pearl Jam to Happy Hansen. I've always had a huge eclectic vibe about me in everything that I do. Music, literature, movies, life has been eclectic for me. So a lot of things started culminating there. I was still constantly searching to find the magic and to find the mystery, or to uncover the mystery, right? To reveal something spectacular that never really left me. And there were so many things that started to add up, but that I felt like I really couldn't talk about, and I didn't have anybody to really discuss with. My friends were interested in way different things than I was. So all in all, I just felt super alone at that time. And I feel like this tarot deck really encompasses that, because there's a little bit of everything, you know? I found my voice at the same time I lost it. I found friends that I still have today, but I was secluded from them. I had my touch and taste of that supernatural, magical, real world, and it was kind of taken away as well. So I feel like all the different aspects of the Cosmos Tarot really speak to that. Teenage years are always hard, y'all. They're always hard. But about 17, I would say about 17, I had just turned 17, actually. 17. I just turned 17, and I was finally able to move out on my own. I graduated from high school and immediately left and gained that independence and started something completely new at the end of my teenage years, and finally felt free. So that was life-changing for me. When I got my driver's license, that opened up a whole new world as a teenager. But again, those reins were so tight. So when I turned 17 and I graduated, I literally graduated high school, and the next week I had my own place with my friend who was 18. We had an apartment, and I was gone. And that was definitely a game changer in the way that I felt. So that kind of moves me into my 20s. And for that, I chose a light/dark deck. Again, because 20s are all about, or for me, was all about trying new things. So there was a lot of newness and excitement, but I felt like that's when dark thunderclouds started to roll in. Like there was a happy and very dark layer to my 20s, where I was figuring myself out, going through new experiences, living life free. I had moved, all kind of stuff. So there was all kind of great stuff going on, but there was also a layer of dark. So I chose the Line Strider Tarot because almost every image has a darker background and beautiful, vibrant colors on the outside. So there's light and dark here, very obvious. There's that black and white and color. And I thought that this really represented my 20s. Right at the beginning of my 20s, Jacob and I, which is my husband, at the time he was just my friend, we started dating. So we'd known each other since we were 5 years old. We went to elementary school together, we went to high school together, we went to college together, but we didn't get together as a couple until we were around 20, 19 or 20. So that in itself was super exciting. We had spent so much time together. We had never really thought of each other like that, but it just kind of developed from there. And that was a great time. I was in a new space. I was trying to figure myself out. I was learning all kind of new things. But I started to get into really caring about what I call dumb shit. It wasn't dumb shit then. But I started to damage my body trying to get into a space that society said I should be, right? And I did a lot of damage to myself then. All in the name of being better, what I thought was better. And nobody ever said anything to me like, you need to do this, but it was everywhere. Like we all know, it still is everywhere. You should get married and have kids. You should be a size 0. You should have big muscles. You should have white skin or this, that, like dumb shit. Dumb shit that you should care about. You should have the nice car. You should have the nice this, that, and the other. Those things started to creep in my 20s. But it kind of started with being with Jacob. I wanted to change just so I could be better, right? For him and for us, and to potentially start a life together, right? And then my grandfather died, the one that kind of helped raise me. And that brought a lot of depression and sadness. He was my whole world. It's been 14 years and it still hurts sometimes. So there was that dark undertone and I got on medication. I needed it at the time. It's not something that I do anymore. I got off of it fairly quickly, if I'm being honest. I used it until I had had enough and then I got off. But it did help because it was a really bad time. I didn't have the skills that I have now to cope and to grieve, because throughout my whole 20s, I worked in very male-dominated fields. I studied male-dominated studies, and I stayed in masculine energy for most of my 20s. So it was pretty intense. So I felt like I needed to suck it up and just do. And so grieving couldn't be a part of that. So I also fell into a very masculine energy. I allowed no feminine energy in. I didn't want to show emotions. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to tell you how it is. I was going to go, go, go. It was all about action and being better and stronger and yada, yada, yada. It was intense. It was an intense period of masculine energy in my life. And I started a new job, so we were able to move after we got married. So that was another exciting thing. It was probably a few months, actually, wasn't even a year that we'd been married, that we moved to a different state, actually. And again, the job which I got then and I'm still in currently, is in the oil field. I know some people are really against that. I'm a landman, so what I do is I research. I research land and minerals and things like that. So I just work out of courthouses, basically. I do the research work. So it was a job that I finally felt encompassed what I loved. I was able to learn and to research and to unravel mysteries and to dig in and figure out what these families did and wanted and how they had a lot of fucked up shit that they said in their wills. It wasn't always pretty, but it was something new and exciting, and I do it still to this day because I love to unravel a mystery. So I did find my career finally, and I was, and still am sometimes, a Jill of all trades, but a master of none, because I was constantly getting bored with everything that I did, and this was finally the first thing that felt natural. So I was able to do that, and it took me to beautiful places. We lived in Colorado for a while, and I felt amazing. It was awesome. I out in nature every day in the sunshine, and it felt great. I never had a happier time in my 20s than when I was in Denver. And then the other dark clouds started to come where we had to move back, and I had been running, and I got home to Texas at the time, and I started running again outside, and I stepped off a curb, and I injured something in my hip joint, and so I started to live with pain. Jobs were lost. Then I got pregnant, and that was a happy time for me. However, much like this smoke coming off this girl, I was still in such a masculine state of mind that I didn't allow myself to enjoy my pregnancy. I didn't allow myself to feel the emotion that went with it because I thought that was being stupid and girly and I didn't need it. I did not allow myself to feel like the goddess that I was growing a life inside of me, and it still makes me very sad that I did that to myself. It really does, because I can't go back. Sorry. But Lennon was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I had her when I was 29. So it was a rough time during my pregnancy because I was so sick. And then we weren't getting paid from our jobs, which added a whole nother layer of stress. And so when she came along, my whole world opened up because I finally felt true unconditional love. So the amount of happiness, oh, and I love how the bear came up when I talked about being a mom, because it always pops up for me. So the little hermit, which is another valid card, because as soon as I had her, I dove into being a mom. I was told that, oh, I could always see Jacob being a father, but I could never see you as a mother, coming from my mother. And it very much unraveled my childhood for me. Rose-colored glasses definitely came off, and things started coming up that I never thought would, that I never even thought was an issue. But having Lennon brought all kinds of stuff to the surface, and then I, like the hermit, went into myself and her, and I lost myself pretty greatly in the first year of her life. I was a mother, period. I wasn't Danny. I wasn't a wife. I wasn't a daughter. I wasn't a friend. I was a mother, period. And while that's good in certain ways, it's very bad in other ways. So I really did lose myself trying to sort through my childhood, how I wanted to be as a mother, the mistakes that were made with me, the way that I had lived my life thus far. And Lennon opened up for me so much. And I'm going to try not to get emotional again, but I'm not guaranteeing it. So I know that was a long one, sorry, but that was my 20s. And moving in, like I said, I had Lennon when I was 29, so moving into my 30s, and these 4 short/long years of that time have changed me dramatically. I started going into the feminine energy when I had her. And it stripped me down of everything that I thought was real. My childhood that I thought was real, but how abandoned I always felt, and how unloved I always felt, and how mistreated I always felt. That's for another time, that story. but it brought up old wounds, and it brought up the way that I treated myself, and how hard I always was on myself. Again, that masculine energy, when not checked, when not balanced, can be incredibly damaging. So I started to notice that, and things started to strip away. I started to peel away the layers, and I have slowly been emerging a different person. So for this time in my life right now, in the past couple years, I've chose the Mesquite Tarot, because everyone in this is just an outline. And I feel like that's where I am. I'm starting anew. I am coming into myself, my real self, who I've always knew I was inside but couldn't portray on the surface. That's finally being broken down, and I feel liberated, and I feel content and happy, because I feel like I can finally be myself now. So this Mesquite Tarot is everything at this point in my life, because I feel like they're non-specific. They move and flow through brand new, because everything is so simple and stripped down, and you can build from here. And that's how I feel like I am right now. I've been getting a lot into yoga and meditation. I lead meditations. I assist at yoga. Something that I've been working on the past year or so, and slowly unraveling myself and finding who I am, going back to what feels right, my paganism, my witchcraft, my healing, my card reading, which I don't know if I mentioned. I found out recently, after my pop passed away, the one that was a traiteur, that he was a card reader who learned from his mother, who was a card reader, who I believe learned from her mother. So I feel like I'm carrying on this legacy, and I had no idea. I had no idea. I've been doing this for years. I started when I was very young, and then I definitely lost it, and I picked it back up the past couple of years, and it has opened me up, and I feel like it's a place that I've always been. It felt like second nature, like I knew this already. And then to find out that I come from a line of readers, not only healers, and we can say witches, even though they would never say that, because some of it was based in Catholicism, but it's in me, and it feels right. It was like coming home to who I truly was. And so I've allowed this to unfold with me again, and I'm starting over still. So I feel like my 30s are going to be truly unraveling the mystery of me and diving deeper into the recesses of myself and this world, and coming back to what feels natural, which is life right now, you know? So, that's where I'm at. This was fun, and this was a bit therapeutic in a way. So thank you so much, Jessica, for doing this. Hashtag Decks for Decades. I'm gonna put her video down below. And thanks for watching and sharing this moment with me, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I love you. Bye, guys.